Hello there, I'm Dr. Debbie. After more than 25 years working with men and women on relationship issues, I have to let you know something you may not know about men. That is, the women they love want them to break the rules they've been taught to live by. It's true. So today let's talk about one of those rules and why women expect men to break it. Here it is. Men have been taught to hide their emotions. Yes, men really do have emotions, and they experience them intensely until they don't. Some men have become so good at hiding their feelings from others that they don't even recognize emotions as part of their experience anymore. And if he doesn't acknowledge his own feelings, he won't know how to acknowledge yours either. So instead, he gives you advice when you want comfort and reassurance. He tells you not to think about it or to avoid painful situations altogether. No, he's not trying to be rude or dismissive. He's trying to teach you his strategy. And the older he is, the more likely he is to try to help you avoid your feelings too. Chances are he's been hiding his emotions since he was in kindergarten. If he didn't, everyone made fun of him. Shame is a powerful deterrent, and every little boy gets a daily dose of it. Not in small amounts either. He gets heavy helpings from adult males and little dudes too, even moms and female teachers. It's a toughening process that prepares him for manhood, because the world is a tough place for men, even more so now than ever before. If you've been following me for a while, you know that men are actually more sensitive than women. Research has shown that as babies, boys smile and coo more than baby girls. They also cry more and are harder to soothe. But they're also much more physically active, preferring rough and tumble play and anything that activates the large muscle groups in their arms and legs. As a group, adult males are larger and physically stronger than women. Of course, there are exceptions. Some women are larger and stronger than some men, but most men have the capacity to overpower most women. Therefore, a healthy man has to learn to regulate both his emotions, meaning his sensitivity to women in particular, and control his physical strength. When both those skills are honed, he achieves what I believe to be the ultimate masculine trait: gentleness. Now, we don't understand that word very well. We think gentleness is the equivalent of weakness. It's not. Gentleness is controlled strength. The world needs more wise men who know how to harness their sensitivity to those they love and take appropriate actions to protect and provide for them. We women need to understand this about the men we love. Talking about his feelings, especially in terms of his vulnerability, has always been highly discouraged. Deeply shamed by his own weakness, he never gets a chance to develop an emotional vocabulary. More than once in counseling, I offered a cheat sheet filled with feeling words to a male client. Even if he had a hard time coming up with his own words, he had no problem recognizing his emotions on the list, which revealed a lot about his internal experience. He could still feel. He just didn't know how to talk about it. It brought too much shame. Other men were so disconnected from their emotional experience that a list couldn't help. Nevertheless, the emotions were present and obvious to me. Fear, hurt, sadness, guilt, shame. I could still see it in his eyes, and I wanted his wife to see it too, so she could understand and then learn how to comfort him without shaming him further. But more often than not, when I ask a woman to look into her husband's eyes and tell me what she saw, her answer was, "He's angry." He had been displaying defensive anger, which actually means self-protective anger, for so long that all his wife could see when she looked at him was anger. When I taught undergraduate psychology at Biola University, I showed a series of training videos in my introductory counseling class. In the video demonstrating feminist therapy, The client described an interaction with her husband. The therapist concluded that the man was abusive. However, the details of the story revealed something else altogether. The woman had wanted to talk about an issue and her husband walked away from her. She stated that she had decided he was going to talk about it whether he wanted to or not. So she followed him into the next room, insisting that they talk. He moved to another room, and she followed. She eventually backed him into a corner in their bedroom, literally and emotionally. When she came toward him, he put his hands out to stop her. And according to the therapist, that made him abusive because he should never touch her, even if she was getting too much in his space. After each training video, the class discussed what they thought about the therapist's approach and whether or not they believed he or she had been helpful to the client. In this case, at first, most of these senior psychology majors agreed with the therapist's assessment. That is, the women did. The men remained silent. So I asked one of the male students to help me demonstrate. He came to the front of the classroom where I started in on him, attacking, blaming, criticizing him. At first, my student laughed. I'm sure it felt totally weird having his prof yell at him out of the blue. He said nothing, but I was relentless in my pursuit of a response from him. I moved closer, within a foot, in his personal space, and he backed up. I kept inching forward, and he kept inching away until his back was against the classroom door. I repeated over and over that we need to talk about this, here and now. I wasn't going to put up with his silence any longer. With the doorknob in his back, he finally put out his hands to push me away from him. Even he was surprised by his actions. And suddenly everyone, including the women, had more empathy for the woman's husband. Now, that could just be an interesting anecdote from my teaching experience, but I watched it play out again and again in real life with multiple couples in my counseling office. It was heartbreaking to watch a woman try to get her husband to break one of the biggest rules of manhood. She was attacking, blaming, criticizing him for following what he had been taught. Stay in control of your emotions. Don't talk about them. Don't ever let them show. So he defended himself by staying silent. That only made matters worse. The woman would escalate, and I would hear the same words I heard from more than one man. I took it as long as I could. At that point, every man either lashed out or walked out. There's a better way to do marriage, and it begins with understanding and compassion. A man has it rougher than his wife realizes. She doesn't know because he's been taught to keep his feelings to himself and from himself if possible. The best way to bring down the wall between you? Create an environment that makes the wall totally unnecessary. How? Well, let's start by completing the marriage challenge for wives. I'll put the link in the description below. I'm pretty sure it'll help.